So I have a friend of mine who is really close to my wife, actually, my wife's cousin, who, 10, 15 years ago was like calling my wife's family. Well, maybe I shouldn't say this, but she was like, hey, Melissa's smoking weed, like 15 years ago. And like now she just came over, a year ago or so. And it just came over. That's how old I am. I'm like, yeah, she just came over like last summer. Because we're older and time is shorter. Anyway, um, she was like, yeah, Mother Aya and that, and like she got married in the Peruvian mountains with her husband. She's like all about psychedelics and shamanistic mystic philosophy, and we talked a lot obviously about all that. And yeah, she was like, yeah, Mother Aya's making herself known and stuff was like a sentence she used. And I feel like that's indicative of a larger societal shift towards realizing that that stuff does actually have value. Maybe when you were a kid, that was like, it was just kind of the weird, esoteric lady reading cigarettes, but now we're realizing that there's a lot of value in, particularly, I mean, I think what psychedelics does is that, the psychedelic experience breaks down barriers, right? It destroys, the kind of ego sense of separateness. And thankfully we have, kind of modern psychology, Jungian, understanding to help us realize like subconscious and these concepts that, it helps us explore. And so, having your background, having a Latin American background that's closer to, the usage of those plants, certainly more so than America and the European, European culture. What's your take on kind of the renaissance, if you will, of psychedelia?
Yeah, I think that because it was associated with indigenous communities, it was, put behind the curtain for a long, long
Right.
time.
The other, right.
Yeah, demonized.
Exactly,
Yeah.
demonized. It was like, because you literally do see demons, when you're drinking ayahuasca and when you're going through these entheogenic experiences, like you can see a lot of dirt in your head, in your heart, in your
Mhm.
spirit. So there's definitely that aspect of it, and I'm sure that aspect didn't commune well with this idea of salvation and you know God as like this perfect heaven and hell and this thing, and it's like you can only go for heaven in Catholicism, like
Kind
hell
of
hell.
reductive, patriarchal, yeah,
Exactly,
yeah.
exactly.
Flowing beard guy.
So the whole plant resurgence, I think, connected to a wellness wave that has been incrementing over the past, I'd like to say 10 years, perhaps. In my case, natural remedies were always around. Colombia has an amazing biodiversity, so you get all sorts of vegetables, fruits, herbs, roots, etc. So there was always something for. I remember when I was young, I had mumps, and the cure was to tie a necklace of baby lemon limes and leave it for like 2 days, and my mumps
Hmm.
went away. No
Wow.
antibiotics, no shots, no anything. And this was who cured me this way was my grandmother, who is the most devout Judeo-Christian person you will meet. Like, she has altars all over her house. Like, she prays with her rosary beads, like very,
Yeah.
very committed. But she was the first person to say, oh, that's mumps, just put this necklace around your head, your neck, and in 2 to 5 days you'll be cured. And it worked. And I'm sure there's some biological chemical answer to that. So there
Yeah.
were always like these little, bits and pieces of natural remedies out there, but but for a while I think it was seen as, oh, you're a hippie or you're crazy, or you're a left-wing Marxist or whatever if you're going into the jungle and taking ayahuasca. Now it's like getting a tattoo, you know, like if you don't have a tattoo, are you even a millennial? Like, I don't know. Like, have you done it? If you haven't done
Totally.
ayahuasca, like, you know, are you living in the 2000s?
So true.
So on one hand, I think it's great that people are discovering these natural medicines and these sacred plants, but we cannot forget that they're sacred. You know, they have to be respected. And when I hear about friends being like, oh, I just got invited to like this ayahuasca experience in a penthouse in Soho in New York, and like this shaman, he's amazing, he's French. I'm like, wow, okay, like
It's only $12,000 and
yeah, also
yeah.
that, also that. Like I respect that. Like, I don't think a shaman has to be born in the jungle in order to have guiding and curative, you know, knowledge. But at the same time, shamans went through a lot to get to where they are in their communities. You know, it wasn't so much like, oh, someone woke up one morning and say, okay, who wants to be a shaman? Like, there, you come over here. You know, it's like,
Yeah.
these people would have to go through a lot of trials and tribulations and learn, and they would get lost in the jungle for years and learn about what each plant did and how to cure things and experiment. And I'm sure a lot of people died in that process, so that now somebody who goes to Burning Man, you know, has this revelation in the middle of some super cool camp, and then comes back saying, okay, I'm moving to Tulum, and now I'm going to do ayahuasca ceremonies left and right. You know, again, like, full respect to the people who do it. And I'm sure there's really amazing healers out there that go beyond nationality or trade or background or whatever, but you're just starting to see too many of them. And I think we cannot forget that these plants are sacred.
I'm very glad you brought that up, because it's
Yeah, spot
something
on.
I struggle with the critiquing of that scene a little bit as well. Like, it doesn't feel very like loving kindness, like all beings, you know, sentient beings have value. Like, whenever I start to like make those same kinds of judgments, like I feel like the opposite of that. So, and I'm sure you do too. And you prefaced your saying by saying respect to them. You know, like I'm right there with you. Like there's a value. I think it's also on levels too. Like you have like really like masters, but then you have these guys kind of and gals in the middle rungs, if you will, that are still working out more of their you know, darkness, so to speak, or their shadow work. That you know, they're still on the path. They had to go through making you know, a social media, a shaman presence first to get past the ego aspect of it. You know, like they're on their path too at some point, but they're not the end all be all. And yeah, I think it's super useful to call out and appreciate you also saying that it's not nationality based. We actually in a previous podcast episode we were talking about, like, for example, the idea of like kind of charlatan detection, or like what are kind of some bullet points possibly, and like the main one I think isn't nationality based, it's vesselhood based. Like the more you see someone that says like, oh, this isn't me, I'm just, you know, I'm a work in progress, I'm working on my own stuff, but what I do is I get into this space where the healing material comes through me or the information comes through me, you know, that's okay, I'm interested, I'm all ears in that person. But you know, if that person is saying like, I'm the source of this, and you know, that gets power hungry and egoistic, like that's a red flag, you know.
It's very interesting that you mentioned that, because that's exactly how I open my tarot readings. I say,
oh, beautiful.
I say, look, this isn't me. I don't know you. You don't know me. Like, it's great that we connected, but I'm just a bridge. I'm just a channel between what the universe has for you and the cards.